Hello and welcome back. Obviously I've changed my visual appearance a little bit since the last time I filmed a video. As you can see, I obviously got new glasses from the store. These are a little more round, not as square. I like them a lot. They're also red and black on the sides. Very, very spiffy. Today we're going to be talking about a movie trilogy that actually means a lot to me. I've always been kind of movie crazy growing up, and I was in theater and all of that, but I didn't really get into movies like going to see them every single weekend and, you know, deep diving into Letterboxd and all of that jazz until like 2022. And in 2022, the X trilogy began with X. I didn't get to see it in theaters at the time because I was too young, but I did lie to go see Pearl. I said I was going to see DC Super Pets, and we actually snuck in to see Pearl. So I was actually pretty excited to see Maxine, even though the advertisements didn't leave me like dying to see Maxine. I was still pretty excited just because I really like X and I liked Pearl a lot too. So we're going to be talking about the whole trilogy, how I feel about it as a whole, and break down each movie a little bit. So we're going to obviously start off with X because that's the one that started it all. I feel like X is kind of underrated now because a lot of people will prefer Pearl more than X, which I personally do not. I'll get into that more when I'm talking about Pearl, but X to me is a pretty great movie. I think the writing is just better in X a little bit. I think there's like an actual like theme with getting older and how that affects you and how it's kind of like terrifying. This movie is compared to like Texas Chainsaw, and like yes, it's obviously paying homage to that, of course, but like the characters in here are like actually really good characters and they're like super nice people. I just think like most slashers don't have that, and I actually like care for the characters, and when they start like dying off towards the end, I was kind of sad. Since a lot of these movies don't really feel like that to me, this movie kind of just sits above them a little bit. This movie definitely has flaws, don't get me wrong, but I do think it's just a really well made film overall. Pearl, Mia Goth, and Ty West wrote this movie like before they started filming X. I think they had a COVID period where they had to like stay isolated, and then they were on FaceTime writing this movie together, and this is the result. It's pretty awesome that A24 like allowed them to do this because it created one of the best horror characters we've seen in a long time. I kind of feel like they can continue making these movies because Pearl is such an amazing character and everybody loves Pearl and Mia Goth as Pearl, and there's like a 50-year gap between Pearl and X. So like what were they doing in that 50 years? I know they were definitely murdering a lot of people. So we can get movies and movies of that. Of course, like we would know Pearl and Howard would get out of the situation because they're together at the end. But I think most people would just be happy just to see Mia Goth as Pearl again. Now I get that Pearl is a character study, but I just think everything outside of the character of Pearl is just kind of uninteresting to me in this movie, and that's kind of why I prefer X over Pearl. Even though they're pretty close, I do really love everything they do with the character of Pearl, and that's the main focus of the movie. I just think the characters aren't as good, the kills aren't as exciting, and it's just not as fun as X was. Now on to Maxine. So a lot of people are feeling kind of mixed about this movie. I am leaning a little more positive than I think some others. I definitely think it's the weakest of the trilogy, but I don't think it's awful by any means. To start off with the pros, Mia Goth is amazing, and she's amazing in all three of these movies. I'm sorry I haven't mentioned her a lot, but she's amazing in X, Pearl, and Maxine. I think Mia Goth is going to be a movie star. I hope she sticks with the horror route, but I know she's already moving on to bigger things like Marvel and all of that, which she will be great in. And in Maxine, there are a few great and amazing scenes, but there's just more in X and Pearl. Now to jump into the cons, I just feel like the first hour of this movie was kind of a mess. We get introduced to a few characters, but we just simply don't get enough screen time with them to have any sort of care for them. So by the time like the movie's ending and these people are dying, we're just like, meh. Minor spoiler, but Halsey was in one scene and she was pretty great in her one scene, and I was excited to see where that character was going to go, and then in the very next scene she was dead, and I was so upset because I really liked her character from the one scene. I think where this movie stumbles a little bit is because they made Maxine kind of the main focus and kind of try to do like a character study like they did with Pearl, where in X Maxine was the main character overall, but there were so many people around her that helped her carry the movie, and in this movie they just didn't have enough characters to help her. Because Maxine, she's just trying to be a movie star. She just wants to be famous. She'll do whatever it takes. That alone is interesting, but it's not interesting enough to have a 2-hour film. So she would need some kind of a solid ensemble around her to help her carry the movie a little bit. And there's no problem with that because X did it. But they just simply did not give the other characters around her enough screen time or things to do to where they could actually become an important character. Overall though, I do think that it's very cool that this movie even exists and that there's an A24 trilogy, a horror trilogy out there that anybody can watch now. I do think ranking them, it is 1, 2, and 3 for me personally, but I know a lot of people do really prefer Pearl, but I do think most people will agree that Maxine is the weakest of the 3. So now to review / recap this whole trilogy, I'm going to go through some of my favorite moments, kills, and characters. So I'm going to start off with my favorite character, and it has to not be somebody played by Mia Goth, because that's just cheating. It's one of the side characters. From X, my favorite side character was Bobby Lynn, played by Brittany Snow. She's honestly just a really nice human, and she even offers to help Pearl at the end, which makes her death even sadder, because she was really just trying to help Pearl. And Pearl threw her in the water, and she got eaten by an alligator, which was pretty awesome. So my favorite character from Pearl that is not played by Mia Goth is Ruth, who is played by Tandy Wright. She plays Pearl's mother in the movie, and it's just very interesting to see a person that raised Pearl and kind of see why Pearl acts the way she acts. I also just thought their scenes together were awesome, and they're dynamic, and Tandy Wright is also just a great actress. And my favorite character from Maxine is John Labatt, played by Kevin Bacon. I am just a huge Kevin Bacon fan in general. I love Footloose, I love Tremors. I think Kevin Bacon is an amazing actor, and he's just having so much fun in this movie, and I'm loving that he's having so much fun. Obviously his character, he's not like the greatest character ever written or anything like that, but he's just so funny in this role, and I really loved him. Now I move on to my favorite scenes from each of these movies. My favorite scene from X is going to be Bobby Lynn singing Landslide. I think this is right at the middle point of the movie, right before all the horror and slasher stuff starts, and also where I started feeling pretty bad. This is where I kind of started to feel a lot for all these characters. I really liked Bobby Lynn. This is where I started feeling bad for Pearl and getting scared of aging and what that means. It's honestly just an amazing scene, and the song is just so perfect for the theme of this whole movie of getting older. My favorite scene from Pearl is obviously Mia Goth's 9-minute monologue. It's amazing in every way. It's right before the best kill of the movie, which I'm about to get into in a second. And it's also just so funny seeing the cutbacks to Mitzi as Pearl is just rambling on and on. And I think this like solidified Mia Goth as just like an amazing actress. Like she carried that whole 9-minute monologue and made it interesting still. By the 9th minute, it's really amazing stuff. My favorite scene from Maxine is probably going to be the alleyway scene. I thought that was pretty cool. It's pretty early in the movie, and I do think it's a little like ridiculous because I do think the character of Maxine would have just shot the guy immediately, but I think what she does to him is just so funny. I just think it's a great scene on its own. I don't really like this scene that much in the movie, but the scene itself is just great. So my favorite kill in all 3 of these movies, so starting off with X, is going to be Pearl herself. I thought that whole like 5 minutes prior to this kill was just absolute madness, and then this was just a perfect way to end it with Maxine reversing and backing over Pearl's head as she's talking crap to her. She runs it over twice and completely demolishes the brain and any resemblance of a human. I don't think I can show this in the video, so you're just going to have to go by my explanation or like watch the movies. So my favorite kill from Pearl is going to be the chase down of Mitzi. It comes right after the 9-minute monologue from Pearl, and it's just so funny seeing it cut back to Mitzi as she's talking and then realizing she's absolutely insane and needs to get out of there or else she's going to die, and then trying to get out of there and getting chased down and ultimately murdered by an axe by Pearl. My favorite kill from Maxine is going to be the hydraulic press on Kevin Bacon at the junkyard. I thought this scene was just so shocking to me because I thought they were going to like stop and like get answers out of him and ask who the killer is and all of that. but instead they just full on, just no stop, just straight down until he is absolutely demolished. I really loved this scene, and I just thought it was so funny hearing Kevin Bacon like plead for his life after he's done the most awful things to Maxine. But yeah, that's going to be it for me on this like little review slash recap. I honestly really do like this trilogy. I do think Maxine is a little bit disappointing overall, but it's still a great trilogy overall. I'm glad it happened. Maybe it'll grow on me as time goes on, and maybe I'll appreciate it more. But from the first viewing of Maxine, I was a little disappointed by it. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know your favorite kill, character, or moment from these movies. That'd be great. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.